stun gun is back, or, well, the Nullifier. And a lot of people have been asking me, I mean, basically since the moment that this was announced, I've had people DMing me, messaging me in the Discord, and then when I'm streaming on Twitch, a lot of people have been asking this. Like, I think this might be the most common thing that's being discussed right now, and I just kind of want to put my thoughts out there and kind of discuss, is it overpowered? Is it too weak? Because I'm hearing a lot of different people saying different things right now, and now I kind of want to break down kind of how it works and why I think it's not as weak as you guys think, and why it's not as strong as you guys think, because there's a lot of things that people have kind of overlooked, and it might sway your opinion on where it lands. Now, this works basically the exact same as a stun gun did before in terms of range, cooldown, charges, and the stun gun model is the same. So as far as I can tell, it's the same in those categories, but the effect is quite different. So now, instead of stunning somebody, which would be where they basically can't move, their aim is very shaky, and they're unable to interact with a lot of things, we now have a different effect where they basically just disappear off the map. Same thing where you can't interact with certain things, but you can reload, you can move at full speed. And another thing a lot of people do not know is that you can actually block bullets. So you are essentially a full riot shield. Bullets just kind of bounce right off of you and do nothing. So you can actually body block for your teammates. And I see a lot of people instantly react by trying to run away. But the thing is, you can actually get ready for people while in the phase. So that way you can even chase people down in this phase, almost as if you're using a Wraith phase from Apex, but you actually are able to shoot right out of it. So it's actually a better effect than that. The duration seems to last about 4.5 seconds. And I kind of want to look at both arguments of this. One is it is no longer a free kill, which is what a lot of people have been saying in terms of it being weak. Basically saying, well, yeah, you just kind of nullify somebody and they're able to just run away. They can body block for their teammates. They basically don't make an impact, but they're not a free kill anymore, as the stun gun, quote unquote, used to be a free kill, at least in the casual and lower elo scene. But as you went up into higher elo, it was used mainly for the utility of it, for opening up fights, for stalling, for interrupting cash boxes. It was sort of a support tool rather than a free kill tool as it was in lower elo. Simply because Light's TTKs lose versus almost everything else. When it comes to a medium or a heavy, their guns will kill quicker than the Lights will when facing a Light because of how squishy a Light is. So opening up a fight with a gadget, having to swap to your weapon, means that you're going to be behind on the first couple bullets, meaning that most of the time you actually lose that engagement versus a good player. So this new effect now essentially puts a enemy out of the fight for roughly under 5 seconds. And I would say a lot of the competitive players, when they first heard of this, thought, oh my gosh, that is insanely overpowered. Now we get to turn a 3v3 into a 3v2 for a pretty short duration, but that's all we really need to finish a fight. But in practice, and from what I've seen from other people using it, it's just not really the case. A lot of top players already understand the concept of body blocking pretty well, so the moment that they get stunned or nullified now, they just go in front of their teammate and just body block for them. Or they chase the Light around, getting ready because they're going to win that TTK war the moment that they come out of the nullify. I will say the one strong aspect of it that I've seen is in combination with the SH-1900 or the M26 Matter, because the shotguns have that really big initial upfront damage. It is also pretty good with melee weapons such as the sword or the dagger, for the same logic of you want to be up close to people, so it actually helps you close that distance a little bit without taking damage. Now when it comes to offensive plays, I feel like a lot of people are pretty good at kiting, and it hasn't made too big of an impact in a lot of competitive plays. And even in the pugs and pro scrims that I've been in since the launch of it, in order to push and test this new gadget to its fullest, we've seen that a lot of people are pretty good at kiting and playing defensive while having a teammate nullified. So the strength of it is often for disengaging. So whenever an enemy pushes you, you can usually nullify one of the enemies, and you can kind of turn that fight around because they're going to be in a weaker position. Another thing is it's really not that good for entry anymore. You really don't want to throw it out right away because maybe your teammate might have wanted to shoot that target that was in the open that you ended up just nullifying. You kind of just save them indirectly. So what we often do with it now is we try to use it for a disengage, or maybe we go in first with our weapon, and then the moment that a 1v1 turns into a 1v2, we just nullify the second enemy in order to keep the 1v1 up. Or if we need to reload, retreat, whatever it may be, I find the nullify is pretty good there. And I would say it pairs best with cloak, simply because cloak doesn't have that really quick dash to get out of fights. And usually you're kind of committed to a lot of the fights. You're a little bit more of a brawler. So I'd say in that aspect, I found a little bit more success when using cloak with the nullifier, but I didn't find as much success when using the dash with the nullifier. Instead, I still found that thermal vision or even sonar grenades was a better pick. I think as of now, I'm going to be keeping the nullifier in my reserve for my light classes, and I'm not really going to be throwing it into the main part of the gadgets. For now, I'm just going to stick with thermal vision, gateway, and glitch, as I find those are the most impactful and the most consistent for me. Thermal vision I can kind of get use out of in almost every fight, but the nullifier, it's a little bit harder and more situational when you do get a pretty big impact. Now the thing is, this is new and a lot of people want opinions right away. I mean, the first 10 minutes of my first stream, before I even touched the gadget, I had already had about 3 people asking me what my thoughts on the nullifier are. So I understand a lot of people want an opinion pretty early, but we really need to let gadgets and metas develop over time. We've seen this so many times with stuff like the minigun. Initially, a lot of people thought the minigun was a pretty mid weapon, probably more for the casuals, a little bit weaker, until there were some people like Busy and Sensoyo who were pushing it since day one and ended up bringing it into the Pro League. And it was so strong that everybody ended up copying them. And then it ended up getting a buff and just sort of pushing the minigun meta even further than it already was. When we jump the gun too much on saying something is too weak or too strong, we can end up with some tricky balancing, as people's opinions are going to sway over time. And we really need to let the competitive players push these weapons a little bit further to see their full potential. I think it's really good to theory craft and explore different gadgets and concepts, because we don't want to get stuck in a rut of using the same things over and over again. So I understand the nullifier was a little bit concerning for some people, whether they think, oh, it's just not good enough to use, even though they've only used it for a day. And there's also some people who were saying that it was just far too overpowered and just completely broken before it was even in the game. So as it stands, I want to give my overall opinion right now. I think it is an okay gadget. I don't think it's that strong, and I really don't think it's that weak. I think there's plenty of times like preventing a steal or disengaging where the gadget can be pretty handy. I've even been able to steal some cash boxes from people in order to steal the plug, which was kind of nice to do like we used to do with the stun gun. But I'm really curious to see where people push this, because who knows, it might become the meta, or maybe it won't. But we have pretty mixed opinions across the board, and I sit pretty firmly in the middle there. I do like it in my reserve, but it's definitely not a mainstay in my loadout. But if you guys been testing the nullifier, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about it. Is it too strong? Is it too weak? Do you guys think it is pretty balanced where it is? I think the effect itself is really going to cater only to the higher elo players. I think when it comes to casuals and lower elo, this thing is going to be basically useless. It's going to be really hard to capitalize on that 4.5 seconds to attack the other enemies. And for the disengage and objective-oriented uses, I think for the most part, it's a little bit harder to coordinate those things with your team in a lower elo environment. But in higher elo, it's a little bit more common that we communicate and we play it together. So I could see a little bit more use out of it in there. And I've also seen a lot of people have some good success with it, but I've also seen some horror stories of people stunning a heavy or a medium as their teammate was stealing a cash out, and then they end up just body blocking the steal and basically turn their teammate into an unkillable target for 4.5 seconds, which obviously is really bad to do. You don't want to give your enemies a unkillable target that's stealing your objective. So knowing when and when not to use this is going to be a pretty big learning curve for people. But get out there and use what you want to use. Don't hop on any bandwagons. Subscribe if you're not already. Thank you to all my members. Now get out there and nullify your enemies, and I will see you in the finals.
There you go.
Oh. Yeah. Put me in the bubble. I want to be in there.
Are you putting it inside the dome?
I think I can.
I don't know. I'm asking if that's what you're doing.
Nah, but it sounds like a good idea now.
You gotta get the bottom part. The bottom part of the
What?
That'd be devious, bro.
Oh!
Oh my god, wait, did you do it?
Oh!
No. Wait, that's an insane
You gotta
hole.
trust the process. You gotta trust the process.